We were hoping to be able to have some time and do this during Free Comic Book Day, but before, it hasn't happened yet, but we assumed it's going to be so busy that Dal and I just aren't going to have the chance to talk to Kyle Starks at the store. So we have him kidnapped in my car right outside of Revolution here in Milwaukee. Kyle, what do you think of Milwaukee Avenue?
I'm just finding out now that I've been kidnapped. This is upsetting news.
It's a really good kidnapping. It's going great.
Yeah, I didn't know till now.
Yeah. That's because you're having a good time. It's a good kidnapping.
Always a lovely time in Chicago with the Challengers boys.
Also, we started recording when somebody with a lot of bass is right outside of the car, so I'm sure everybody can hear it.
They're having a good time.
Just like you, Kyle, you're having a good time.
So much fun. So happy to be in Chicago for Free Comic Book Day.
Kyle, what has the reaction of Peacemaker been so far, now that it's been on sale for 3 whole days?
I think people like it a lot, but that might be everyone's protecting me.
Well,
that presumes that people care about your feelings enough to want to protect you, and that may not be true.
yeah, that doesn't happen in America today.
That does seem
far-fetched.
I think people like it. I think people like that comic. I think I make good comics.
It's good. You did good.
Thank you.
We're not going to go out of our way to promote a thing that we don't like, even if you're coming to the store.
I will be at the store for Free Comic Book Day from 11 to 4.
Oh, it already happened.
Yeah, people aren't
I
gonna
was
do
there and it went great. It was amazing.
We sold out of every copy.
I can't believe 10,000 people showed up to meet me because I'm so special and
James
talented.
Gunn got in line.
Oh my
to get
gosh.
a copy signed? Amazing.
It was so nice to meet Mr. Gunn at the Free Comic Book Day.
I can't believe that you chopped Andrew's hand off. I mean, he had it coming, but still. Brutal but efficient, and I admire that. Good work.
I was like, who's Andrew? But then I was like, I remembered. It was the guy who got his hand cut off.
Yeah.
One
I mean,
of the guys whose hand you cut off.
You don't have to remember which person's hand you cut off. Why would you?
It was a wild scene. I barely recall.
Only 6 kids lost parents?
Maybe,
that was good?
Maybe the craziest Free Comic Book Day I've ever done. That's for sure.
And that's saying something, because you've done them with Chris Schweizer before. Actually, I don't know if you have. I'm just assuming.
No, we did, yeah. We did. He's fine. He's fine. We like him fine.
Dal, you're too far away in the back. You need to say something.
I
lean forward.
But I shake the car, I guess, when I lean forward. I don't know how I'm doing that. I had a really good time at Free Comic Book Day, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm. I bet we did.
There we have it. Well, Kyle, thank you for coming out to Free Comic Book Day.
Yeah.
We planned this a year ago.
Yeah.
And we asked you and someone else.
Who's fine.
And that someone else said, "I'll do it," in a heartbeat. And you said, "I got to check my schedule."
Yeah, one of us is smarter than the other one, Chris Schweitzer. That's
not
facts,
to name names.
old news.
But
So-
this has been a really banner time for us, thanks to you, with Where Monsters Lie, with I Hate This Place, or Fuck This Place, take your pick of covers, with Peacemaker. Has some of your upcoming stuff been announced yet or not?
No.
Okay.
No.
It's all going to be announced at Free Comic Book Day that already happened? Okay, cool.
Oh, wow.
Amazing.
Great.
Oh, if only you were there in line, you would have heard all my secret projects that are lined up.
He was telling everyone who even walked by the table.
All of my exciting new projects.
Well, we're announcing this early, and this isn't a Kyle thing, but this is the thing we can't announce until Free Comic Book Day, but since it already happened, we already announced that we're having both Tilly Walden and Jeff Lemire at the shop on Friday, June 23rd. Coincidentally, Kyle Starks will be back in town that time as well.
I will be. Maybe I'll be there too.
Yeah, maybe he will. You never know. Tilly Walden, Jeff Lemire, that's amazing.
That's a
but
good group.
not as amazing as having Kyle Starks in the car right now.
Absolute Kyle Starks.
Absolute Kyle Starks.
Russell Boy, Kyle Starks.
We love it.
What can you say anything you're working on now or not?
No, nothing's been announced.
Okay, all right.
Like I literally can't. I'm working on 4 books right now, and I can't talk about any of them. I mean, I can tell you guys, but not on this voice box thing. Yeah.
Boop! I turned it off. You're safe.
Let me tell you. Do you guys know who Superman
Remind
is?
us.
You guys know Superman? It's not him. They would never let me touch Superman.
Not even Black Label. There's lines. There's lines they're not going to cross.
Yeah.
Also, I just want to point out that we wanted to call All-Star Comics in Melbourne, Australia, because it is actually Free Comic Book Day for them right now because of the time difference. And we eventually got through to them on our second call, but on the first call, they made us wait for 8 minutes before they hung up.
Yeah, they put me, Absolute Kyle Starks, on hold for 8 minutes.
Yeah, Dal and I expect nothing less when it comes to us, but to do that to Kyle,
I was calling to wish him a happy Free Comic Book Day.
And that's how
they big timed you.
Yep.
Yeah, they kind of big time.
Sure, it sounded like the store was full of 1,000 people. Sure, the registers are going crazy and you could hear them just talking to customers and ringing up them sales. But Kyle Starks is on the phone.
I forgive them, though.
All right, then we do too.
All right. Awesome.
It's all good, All-Star.
We forgive you.
We're just happy that you guys were there. Kyle, thanks for doing Free Comic Book Day.
I loved it. It was maybe the best day of my life.
Wow. Wow,
So many crazy things happened.
A better day than the birth of your children. Got it.
He said maybe.
I had a third one was born. I didn't even see it coming. Like, it was so shocking. I couldn't believe.
Your favorite child was born.
Yeah,
on your birthday.
definitely better than one of them.
I had to run from this Free Comic Book Day event where 10,000 people were in line, including James Gunn, and to the hospital in Indiana and back to finish Free Comic Book Day.
But what's amazing is no one left the line.
No, they waited.
What I appreciated the most was you were running to a hospital and still wouldn't take Andrew, who was still outside bleeding. We put him outside
He
because
knows what he did.
yeah, he did.
Listen, there's repercussions for our actions, even on Free Comic Book Day. Maybe 3 times. In fact, I think that's the law. 3 times the repercussions on Free Comic Book Day.
It's minimum, yeah.
For Free Comic Book Day?
Yeah, it's heightened. Look, holidays
All
have rules.
penalties are
Christmas,
triple.
you get gifts. Free Comic Book Day, you get free comic books, and you also give money to your local comic book shop because that's the social agreement you've entered into. You have to do that when you
It
get a
is a
free
social
comic.
compact.
Is also
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
And if you mess around, you find out 3 times the normal amount. That's just how it is. There's rules.
Retribution times 3.
Yes.
Love it. Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks, guys.
In the Midwest, you know the best is there waiting, so come and join the conversation. I still approved, fan and artist and creator too. This is how the challengers do. What? Keep the conversation moving along. Keep reading comics, keep your local store strong. If it's hard, then it's a job for the challengers. Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers, a comics industry business podcast with Patrick Brower and W. Dale Bush.
And we're jumping right in with a recap of Free Comic Book Day, considering you just heard us in the car before it. Mm-hmm. Now it's in the car, in the podcastatorium after it by 5 days.
Yes.
I will tell one of my favorite Kyle Stark stories, which has nothing to do with Free Comic Book Day or the event itself.
That's a good way to start.
It happened on Free Comic Book Day. We, after Free Comic Book Day, yourself, myself, we took Steph Myded and Kyle Starks and Gabo Bautista to see AAW Wrestling at Irving Hall. And it was called Uno Mas, and
The special guest was Ray Fenix.
Ray Phoenix was there.
One half of the ROH Tag Team Champions, Ray Fenix.
For now.
In a main event match against Chicago's own Gringo Loco.
But the match that gave me the most joy was Fred Yehai.
Who is my favorite in AAW.
Also, how high?
Yeah. I was commiserating with a subscriber about how unbelievable it is that Fred Yehai, who is main eventing in the first AAW match I saw several years ago, has not been picked up by another company because he's so good.
He's so good.
He's so good.
He's small, though.
I mean, he's small-ish, but he's still really well built.
Oh, yeah.
He's got a great look. He's got great presence in the ring. He can work a couple different styles and just, can go a 60-minute match.
Yeah.
So it's like, the only thing I'm thinking is, like, is he just a real asshole backstage? Like, is he just locker room poison? But if so, why would AAW keep him? Like, they don't need
so
a guy
good.
like that. Yeah, but who cares? It's AAW.
So he was challenging for the championship belt against Jake something.
What's his name?
Something. And what we've learned about Fred Yehai matches specifically is that they're going into the crowd. Not like fighting through the crowd, but they're going to be slamming into the guardrail and hitting people in the front row. And for a full season, we had front row tickets. And we know this because we got nailed by Fred Yehai multiple times.
Yeah, we were near a corner, which is usually a pretty bad place to be sitting if you're by the railing, because that's exactly where dudes get thrown into, because you've got, like, the perpendicular row to throw people down, as opposed to being in the center where they can't, the distance between the ring and the railing is like a person, so they can't get any momentum.
Yes,
they really
but I'd like
want
to point
fling
out
somebody.
the first time that Fred Yehai fell on us, we were in the center.
Sure. But, like, that's a different thing where they come out of the ring.
Yeah. So anyway,
That's not where they whip you into the railing.
we know there's a potential of them coming out. We were not front row. We were second row. And second row to a corner. And at first, the idea of the wrestlers falling on top of you sounds like that could be fun. And so it actually happens. Then you realize, like, oh no, they just slammed this guardrail into my knees, and that's a metal guardrail, and now this hurts.
Right.
And one time, Dante Leone was the only person who leaned over to us and said, "Are you okay?"
Yeah, it was very sweet. He's one
Yeah.
of my favorites now because of that.
But anyway,
Also, he's just good. He's a good wrestler.
Kyle was very afraid of getting hit with or by a wrestler. And there was an instance...
HBW, hit by wrestler.
There was an instance where it looked like they were still in the ring, but looked like they were gonna throw somebody out of the ring. And Kyle, who was the second chair in our row, gets up and runs out just to be out of the way. Mm-hmm. And I look over and I see him like looking angry, like looking around, making sure he's safe. And I smiled to myself because I thought it was funny.
It is funny.
Because
it's so funny.
in that instance, I know what I would do. I would take the hit. So anyway.
Yeah, I would not risk my enjoyment and my observation of the match for my own safety.
I would
would
say
be
that
like, let's be in it.
after the first couple of hits in matches previous to this night, as they came closer, and as we were front row, I would put my feet
Yep.
on the guardrail to keep it away from me, knowing full well that they expect a certain amount of give when they hit the guardrail,
And there will
I
be.
was taking that away.
Well, so there still will be give because it's just your musculature against their much larger
and I will win
faster
every time.
musculature. So there's still going to be some give. It's not like you nailed the railing to the ground and now it's got nowhere to go, so they're just going to run into
Immovable
full
force.
speed. Incorrect. So I think it's fine to do that because the alternative is you just let it fly and then there's no breaking.
Yeah.
And
Oh
people
no,
are
there's
gonna
breaking
get
of
hurt.
bones.
There's spraining of bones.
So Kyle's out in the safe zone, and they don't come to the crowd. It cools down a little bit. So Kyle comes back in, sits down. Immediately, wrestlers thrown into the guardrail, into the guy in the front row who slams back into Kyle.
Right.
Kyle was so mad that I could not stop laughing.
Yeah.
I had my head in my hands, literal tears coming down. I was laughing so hard. And I was, it went Dal, then Steph, then me. I was like 4 people away from him.
Yes.
But you could just see the steam coming off of him. He was so mad. It's still funny to this day.
It is.
Oh, man. But we've talked about wrestling too much already.
Okay.
That's your fault. I was just going to set up the stage and tell the story.
Why not?
You had to go into detail about Fred Yehi and
I did.
all the weapons he pulls
He's
out
so
of his
good.
pads
He frequently
and things.
does. He's the savage weight Fred Yehi.
He's a savage weight. I'd buy that shirt. I say I would, but I didn't.
Yeah, I'm going to look on PWT, Pro Wrestling Tees.
Well, the sale's over now.
Just to see if he's got a shirt. It's AAW. I don't think they've got like a branded page, but it's just like the company's logo,
Yeah,
not
but the
like
wrestlers
all
do.
their wrestlers. Well, some do, some don't, and it's like I never see any new designs, and I'm usually looking at the new designs, and people from other promotions have new designs constantly.
Sure.
You can't go a single day without Matt Cardona having 7 shirts go up. But I never seem to see people that I know wrestle in AEW. I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, sorry.
So, Free Comic Book Day,
Yep.
2023. I will say that I think it was our easiest to run. I think that we've been doing this for, 22 years now? That,
Yeah, collectively, yeah.
no. It
I
was-
mean, over multiple stores.
yeah, but I mean, if you add them together, it's like 40.
No, what I meant to say was that Challengers has been doing it for 15, but you and I
Yeah,
have
yeah,
been doing it for years
I
previous.
said we, yeah. So we have it down, not to a science, but we know what we're doing. And this year we did some things to make it even smoother to set up and everything. And big ups to Molly, Jane, and Stella for all the work they did on that Thursday. Andrew was the one who racked all the books. So good job, Andrew, on that Friday. And Gina helped with that Friday. Obviously me, I did a ton of work. The one Andrew thing was after the problem from last year, I came in as he was doing this year. I'm like, Andrew, 7 spaces, not 6. Remember last year when you guys were finished and I came in and said, what did you do? 7. It goes 7 across.
A 4-foot shelf holds 7 spots of comic books.
So it was easier to set up and way easier to tear down. Like we did a lot of not construction, but I guess construction, like alterations to shelves and things to make things easier to move. Mm-hmm. Like the drama shelves, way easier to move.
Yeah.
Did you put those back? Were you
Yes.
the one who put them back?
Yeah.
Wasn't it way easier?
It was way easier.
Yeah.
The humor one's not good, though. That's tilting backwards, and I don't know how to make it stop doing that.
Is that the red one?
Yeah.
I know how to make it. It's,
Okay. I keep trying to tilt it forward a little bit and see if it can find its brace or whatever.
It's adding more wheels to the bottom. But
Okay.
it has different size wheels than the other ones,
Okay.
so that would have to be done.
Yeah, it's tilting back a little bit.
Yeah.
You'll see it when you look at it tomorrow.
Bring everything forward. And adding all the wheels to the white racks in Sidekicks. So setup and everything was easier. But we've had the same crew for so long, everyone knows what to do.
Yeah, a few years ago, we really solidified like where everyone goes, what their tasks are. Even Donovan, who I think had missed last year, and then prior to that was always on register with me. We have a new register system that she'd never used before. So a lot of the early hours was like me ringing people up because I gave her a quick tutorial.
Right.
But there's always weird little quirks that you don't think of. And
Until they come up.
Yeah, if you've been using the register a lot, it's second nature and you know how to problem solve it. If it's brand new to you, you might just kind of lock up and be like, I don't know what button to press. So a few hours in, she was fine. And that's just a testament to how good Donovan is at these sort of things, where a whole new register is thrown at her without even knowing about it. And by the middle of the day, she was running it like it's the only one she'd ever used.
Yeah, when I knew that she was available for this year, and basically she just can't do it whenever it falls on Mother's Day.
Sure.
Which, rare, but happens.
Mother's Day weekend, yeah.
Yeah. So, knowing we had Donovan, I'm like, all right, well, Donovan is behind the counter with Dow. And that's never the Molly Jane spot, even though you would like think that's the most common play. Oh, Molly Jane goes there. No.
Yeah,
Dow and Donovan.
Molly Jane's useful other places.
Yeah. So it was the easiest to run, and I think it was one of my personal better ones. I think I was better at what I was doing, and I think it was honestly more fun than most of them.
That's great.
It's hard to gauge our fun because it's so much work for all of us.
Yeah, it's the weirdest thing. Like when people come in afterwards, they're like, "Oh, Free Comic Book Day was this weekend." Like, yeah, it was. Oh, is it fun? Like, I hope it was fun for other people. Yes. Like,
Yeah,
I'm never going to say like, yes, it was fun for me. Why would it be fun for me? It's my job.
Yeah.
My job is to make it fun for other people. It's like,
But that could be fun for you.
It's like going to Walt Disney World and asking the people working. They're like, "Oh, you having a good time?" Like, maybe, but that's not the point. Like, their point is to make it fun for everyone. That's their job. Just a weird thing. I don't know. I get it every year, and it never makes me comfortable to hear it. Like, I dislike the idea of, oh yeah, no, I had a blast. Like, that just sounds like I prioritize my enjoyment over the people showing up to get free comics and meet artists and have a good time.
So in looking at other stores' recaps of the day, everybody said how much fun they had.
That's great.
Which is literally the opposite of what we're saying.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's value in like doing a thing of like, hey, we ran this event and we had the best time ever.
Yeah.
You guys are so great. But it's like, I don't like that. I would rather other people say they had a good time and me say thank you for attending.
Yeah, really, it's not.
That's it.
Our goal is not for us to have fun; it's for you to have fun at all of our events. If we just have fun, it's a bonus. But I think this was a lighter of one. Maybe that's on me for not expecting there to be problems or worrying about problems.
Maybe.
I definitely was way more relaxed about people breaking rules. Mm-hmm. One of the things we did extra was we took years worth of old Free Comic Day books we had piled up in the back hallway and put them on a table out front of the main store, so as people were leaving, they could grab a couple more.
Here's some bonus ones from years past. None of the new ones, all old ones.
And, we had a limit of 5 for people, but those extra ones didn't count. But we were really trying to be like, hey, just grab a couple extra ones.
Right.
But we don't dig through the box and take one of every single book in there, which there was a guy trying to do.
Right, but we never explicitly said, like, when you come into the store for the regular Free Comic Day comics, the rule was you can have up to 5.
Yeah.
The outside ones, it was like, well, don't take a lot. Take a couple.
It was you can grab a couple. That's a couple.
I mean, I wasn't outside, so I don't know how that was enforced, but even when it was explained originally, it sounded more like a rough, like, well, shrug.
And honestly, it's like, look, we just want to get rid of these books. We're tired of storing them. Yeah, it's stuff that we paid for, but we're not doing anything with them. and they're just in the way.
Yeah, it's stuff that we literally could not give away in years past.
Right. So, fine, whatever. Nobody, though, and this is a thing, nobody commented on it or said, oh, that's awesome, like, look, we get extra books, or that was the thing we did above and beyond to make the experience better for people, and no one even acknowledged it.
Yeah, I mean, again,
Which,
I was not satisfied.
Fine, but I mean, since then, on social media,
sure.
people being in the store,
Yeah.
things like that.
We've talked about this, I think, almost every year we've had a free comic book day, is the feeling of, like, when I'm checking people out at the register, so many people, and I didn't keep count, but so many people were like, thank you so much for doing this. My family had a great time. We love that this is a daily thing.
I never see that because I'm when they first come
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, so I have this perception of, like, no, people had a good time and they were appreciative, but your perception, because you're interacting with them at the beginning of the process,
Is different.
very, like, no one appreciates the links we go to, or they take advantage, or, like, I don't know if it's just you projecting onto these people.
Maybe.
But, like, they must not appreciate this. Like, no, they do. They genuinely do. They don't all appreciate it, maybe, and they don't all vocalize it, but a lot of people did, unprompted. Like,
Great.
I wasn't saying at checkout, like, did you have a good time? Do you appreciate what we did? It was like they were just saying, like, we had a good time. This was great. Thank you for doing this.
It was weird that you were holding your hand up saying kiss the ring the whole time. You weren't even wearing a ring, Dal. That's weird.
Well, I have expectations of your comic book day too, Pat.
Acknowledge me, he yelled. It was also a point where Chicago has a lot of stores.
They do.
And so many people on Free Comic Book Day, as is their right, go to all the stores.
Sure, I think it's a fun thing to do.
They
in a lot
have
of
different
shops.
lists of things they want to get. And there was a group of people who had, like, all their friends lists. Like, oh, we need to get this one for Stephanie. We need to get this one for Phil. You know, just like, because they take care of themselves early.
Do you remember working at Graham Crackers and having to check the special order list at conventions? It's like that, right?
Yeah, kind of.
Where you would have a accumulated list of everything every store needed, and then you have to go through the back issues. Like,
It's a weird.
this one for
it
St.
just
Charles.
seems weird to me when it's like a free thing.
oh, is that? I thought the things that they were getting for their friends were like.
The free comics.
Oh, I thought it was like graphic novels.
No,
in the store
no,
or
no,
something.
no.
Like they were
Like-
looking for, like, oh, if anybody has this
I just said they took care of
Radiant
their own
Black
stuff when they first came in.
Volume 2,
No, I wouldn't.
for me.
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't care
that
about
wouldn't
that?
have come up in where I was.
Okay, maybe you were in the store and you just happened to see
Yeah.
it.
No, it was like the list of free comics they need to get for other people.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly would have never thought of that. That's weird.
Yeah, but it's like I don't know if it was like a Facebook group or a message board or whatever, but it was. And I have no problem with it. It's just weird to me. It's like, oh, well, they're missing out on the experience of Free Comic Book
Yeah.
Day.
Why would you want the free comics without going to Free Comic Book Day?
Right.
I got to tell you, free comics aren't that great.
There was on off panel this week. It was David Harper interviewing Heidi McDonald, and it was recorded before Free Comic Book Day. And David's like, "Are you excited for Free Comic Book Day?" And Heidi's like, "What? No, I would never go to that." She's like, "Do you?" And David's like, "Yeah, I go every year. It's a big ritual for me."
Yeah,
And I understand both of those points of view.
absolutely. Yeah, it's. I think we've both once a year for the last 21 years, maybe, speculated on what would it be like to not have to work one of these.
Yeah.
What would it be like to just have this Saturday off? But at the same time, like, I do see the fun in, like, oh, you get in line, it's a nice day out, you get inside, oh, here's some free comics, oh, here's some artists.
Like, I literally think if I didn't run a comic shop and I was just somebody who had a subscription at, First Aid.
Sure.
It was always going to be Little Italy, now to be Hyde Park. I think I would go in the afternoon
Oh,
to
yeah.
support the store.
Yeah, and I don't think it would be a thing where I'm like, I definitely got to make sure I got this free comic. It's more like, I don't know, let's see what they got.
Yeah. If there was, let's say, a free Captain America comic, I'd be like, James, can you pull that for me? I'd be that guy. No, I'd assume they have
You
plenty.
wouldn't be the guy who'd come in on Wednesday and
No,
be like,
no.
oh, wait, did you
I
not pull this
assume
for
they
me?
would have plenty because this year we cut our numbers by a lot,
Yeah,
and we still didn't run out of
because once
the
again,
Marvel books, the DC books.
we had comics from years past that were in the hallway that we
Yeah.
were just giving away on top of
Yeah.
everything else. Because that's what happens when you guess wrong on, like, how busy a day is going to be or what books people are going to take is like, oh, I have a box of this Paper Cuts comic that now I don't know
Yeah.
if anyone's ever going to want it.
One of the problems with all the free books out front was nobody was there to say, "Hey kids, don't take Barrier. Hey kids, don't take Saga." A couple times I went up to parents. I'm like, hey, just FYI, these whatever, but
Right.
we're not going to not have them out because those are the books we have the most of.
It's true.
Man, I thought Barrier was going to be such a huge. I mean, it did.
I mean, Barrier did really well, but we ordered it because the gimmick for the single issues was like one printing, no trade.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you ever want to read this Brian K. Vaughan comic book in print, this is the way you get it. And so I think we ordered a bunch, and then I think they overshipped issue 1 by a lot.
I don't remember.
I think they did. So like we went high, and then they were like, here's 50% more. And we went, oh God, too many. But even then it was like, oh, it did really well. It did like what a Saga did, but like after a while there was no heat on it.
Well,
Like,
I'm just
there
talking
wa-
about specifically the Free Comic Day book.
Right, but that's the thing. Like we wanted it forever.
Right.
And past a certain point, like, people didn't care, and we eventually ran out of like issue 4, and now it's like we can never sell these now. You can't even give it away because at this point they're just going to go online and read it at Panel Syndicate, and that's their right, and that's cool.
Sure.
But there's no sales value for us.
But
Which
yeah, we
go to
still had-
panelsyndicate.com. You can read it for free, or
And
pay
you-
what you like.
Sure, where you can also read the Walking Dead Alien book that we have a ton of still, and Private Eye, which we sell great.
Yeah, it's true.
So we ordered a lot less books, so much so that, like, in years past, we would have a couple of boxes of restock during the day. We didn't even fill the full rack.
Wow.
Like, the rack was... Well, we also gave stuff less spaces,
Okay.
so the piles were thicker,
Sure.
so we could fit more of last year's books on there.
Yeah, makes sense.
But yeah, I'm sure I'm in the minority here, but the way that Diamond gives you the Free Comic Day books is they ship them out a month or a couple weeks in advance, but they don't bill you for them until after Free Comic Book Day is over. And I would prefer to pay for them up front.
Yeah, I think for a lot of stores, though, because of the volume they get,
I know. I understand it.
Okay.
I'm just saying what I would prefer.
I'm just vocalizing what I think Diamond's thinking is.
Because our bill... I know that.
People listening, Patrick, might not.
Our bill is... They started billing us for next week. Like, oh, this bill is significantly higher because it's all that stuff.
Yep.
And sure, it's the money we made on Free Comic Book Day, but that's not how that works.
No, maybe for other stores.
Yeah. So, we also had Kyle Starks and Stephanie Meidad. Steph said she had a great time and she did pretty well.
That's great.
She was very happy with the turnout. When we had asked her, I'd completely forgotten that she did Free Comic Book Day for us last year as well, because I don't like duplicating people for their sake, not ours.
It's a big
she
ask.
could be at our store for every Free Comic Book Day. I don't care.
But it's a
she's
big
great.
ask to get somebody to come in and for Free Comic Book Day
Yeah.
and do sketches. That's a lot of hours for them.
I don't know how Kyle did, but I know he did, a couple of commissions, and I saw people spending money with him.
That's cool. I think I want to say I saw people had gotten copies of Dead of Winter from him and prints and maybe some stickers and stuff.
Yeah. Andrew got a Columbo commission. I got a Grimjack commission.
Nice.
I saw him do a zombie Garfield for somebody. Kyle's thing was he would do a $10 sketch if he got to pick the character. If you wanted to pick the character, it was $20, but he would do no research.
Yeah.
You had to describe the character.
And then he would do free sketches for kids.
Yeah. So my Grimjack was a $20 I describe it, and he pretty much nailed it. Mm-hmm. But there was also an 11-year-old girl who was watching him do it, and coincidentally, he was sitting right in front of Grimjack on our front window. So Grimjack was right behind him.
So you could look right at the image that Chris Giarusso had drawn to get like the details that maybe you didn't remember 100%.
Well, he wouldn't look at it because that's against the rules. But the young girl kept chiming in with stuff, and he's got a cape, and he's got because she's looking at the character, so she was giving him more detail.
Okay.
But anyway, it came out very spot on, really.
That's great.
Except for I said he did the scar in the wrong eye.
Oh my God.
That's fine. I just say it's Grimjack in a mirror.
Yeah, Mirror Grimjack.
Mirror Grimjack. So those are all the positives. The negative, it's just basically one negative
Yes.
with two components.
Uh-huh.
A lot less people
Uh-huh.
came by the store this year.
Correct.
And as such, it was a much smaller dollar amount than we've had in the last 8 years.
Yeah. One of the things is every year that we've done Free Comic Day, not counting the pandemic years, 2020, it was pushed to the summertime, and it was like
It wasn't a real free comic.
it was
free comic book summer.
month. Yeah. So like basically we would have, because to go back in time a little bit, we do all the orders months in advance
In
of Free Comic Book
January.
Day. Orders close like basically in like February because of the long lead time of like they have to print millions of comics. They have to get them to stores like well in advance of when they would normally, like for Diamond. If Free Comic Book Day was just a regular release day, we would have gotten every book that Tuesday. For Free Comic Book Day, we have to get them at least a couple weeks in advance to break down the huge order, check everything, and make sure there's no damages or shortages. And then that would give Diamond time to replace any damages or shortages in time for the event. Unlike a shorted or damaged book normally for release day, you have to get them there by Free Comic Book Day or they are worthless.
Yep.
So as a result, in 2020, by early March, we had already locked in our numbers through Diamond, and the publishers were already moving the gears of Free Comic Book
They
Day.
were already printing.
So basically, there wasn't a way of like turning off Free Comic Book Day because there was a pandemic and stores were shut down and the whole industry was on pause. So what ended up happening was that all of these books were like at stores or at warehouses, and that was like, well, so Free Comic Book Day ended up moving to like the summertime, and then it was decided like, okay, the entire month of August, just put the books out, and that'll be, people can just come in whenever they feel like it. So obviously we didn't staff for like a Free Comic Book Day that year. And then in 2021 it was...
But people didn't buy like Free Comic Day.
No,
either.
and
they just
I mean,
grabbed them as
a lot of the books we were giving away this weekend were probably ones from 2020 that we ended up being stuck with.
Yeah.
2021 was back in August, but it was like one day. And then 2022 was back in the first weekend in May.
Yeah, so we don't count 2020.
Right.
2020 and 2021.
But 2019 and earlier, and then 2022, we're always kind of playing around with the hours of what Free Comic Book Day should be. It's got to be on that Saturday, but when do you open? When do you close? We've done days where it was like 12-hour days or whatever. We've done stuff where it was... we toyed with the idea at one point of doing literally Free Comic Book Day where it ran for 24 hours.
Yeah.
That
was my idea, and you talked me out of that.
We did one where it was like Free Comic Book Day and then an art show afterwards.
That was at the robot. It was the robot art show.
Yeah, it was all local artists.
Yeah.
So we played around with a lot of things. So each year we kind of approach it like, what do we think is a reasonable amount of time, both to maximize how many people we can get in the door and how much money we can make in the day, but also minimize the stress on the people working. It's easy to say like, we'll be open for 12 hours. Cool. How do you staff that?
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, and I can't remember why we landed on what we landed on, but we just stuck to our normal Saturday hours, 11 to 5. We didn't open any earlier. We didn't stay open any later.
I know how we landed on that.
How?
You did that.
I don't remember why, though.
Okay.
Like, I don't know. I don't remember us having a discussion or there being like...
My suggestion was to just open at 10, but close at 5.
Uh-huh.
And you're like, no, just 11 regular hours. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't a discussion. You're just like, no.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't recall having like... And I to this,
A strong feeling
to this
as to
day,
why.
I don't have like an aversion to opening at 10. We've done it before. But the end result is that we're open one less hour, and that business from that first hour, the 10 to 11 hour that we weren't open, didn't move around through the rest of the day. The weirdest thing was that everything was fairly even hour to hour. There wasn't like a huge peak and then a real deep valley later in the day. It was all pretty good flow through the day, which is what I remember from last year. But yeah, by not being open from 10 to 11, either those folks didn't come in at all, which is one possibility, or every hour was down like the same percentage, and it just reflected itself in that way at the end.
Yeah, or the trend is 25% less people are buying comics now.
Yeah, and that's kind of where it ends up, is not feeling like we will probably be open from 10 to 5 next year. You were very like not like, I was like, should we do 10 to 6? And you were like, let's not be open past 5.
Yeah, because we did 10 to 6 once before, and the last hour is always like people still hang around after 5
Right.
anyway. So if we say 10 to 6, then it's like really 10 to 7.
Right.
Because we still have to break down and get the store ready for business the next day.
Yeah.
Who knows if there's an AAW show next year?
Who can tell? But yeah, it ended up being a weird day of hourly things were fine. They were in the range. But it's just, you end the day and it's like, oh, we were down by the first hour's worth of business.
Yeah. But we were hoping for better than last year because the free comic book days before the pandemic were ramping up every year to heights that we never expected we'd ever hit.
Yeah, they were
And then-
almost always our busiest day of the year, and then each year was like the new busiest day we've ever had.
Yeah. At one point, the busiest day we ever had of business was also a Kyle Starks Day, Rick and Morty, the Rickmobile Day, and then a free comic day beat that.
Yeah, like 2019 maybe, probably.
Yeah, and then not only did last year miss, which we thought it would because it was the first one back in the normal spot since the pandemic, but it was off by a couple grand.
Right.
And then this year was, you know, not quite a couple grand lower than last year.
Right. Yeah, the trend line is not moving in the correct direction.
Right.
And so it's a weird situation to be in where you look at the day and you're like, was the day successful? And it's like, yes, in every way but money.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
what do you do with that? What lesson can you learn from that? Like, everybody who worked for us had, it seemed like they had a good time. No one was getting burned out. No one was losing their temper.
Yeah.
We felt like we were in an efficient event. The people who attended had a good time. We had Kyle Starks on the release week for his brand new Peacemaker comic, which is great, and we've been talking about for like 2 months. We had Steph Meiden, who's a great local artist, who has very fun stuff, who's
And
great
has done a bunch of work for us before.
Yeah, and has a new graphic novel coming out later this year.
Club Kickout.
yeah,
Literally the caricatures of Dal and I, the cartoon of the illustration of Dal and I above the main front door of Challengers is by Steph Meiden.
Yeah, and it was, the weather was good. It was a little cloudy, a little rainy at first, but like not by the time we opened. The books this year were good, but I don't know when that ever matters as far as turnout. Most of the people who come out as far as families go do not have any idea of what the free books are going to be before they get there, so they're showing up just for Free Comic Book Day.
We had Stella in a great Captain Kate Pride cosplay.
We had
Black Canary.
well, I was going to say we had Robert Salazar, who had
I was gonna get to him.
had done a protest thing that got coverage in like Block Club and some other places, and was getting some traction online.
Local filmmaker and musician Robert Salazar, who wanted to have a rally, a protest to gauge, like, to get people into reading comics, like protesting against people that don't read comics.
Right, protesting for comic books.
And I had a not real, but a very minimalist Peacemaker cosplay.
He did. It's true.
I wore Peacemaker colors, and I cut out the emblem, put it on my tie, and I had the helmet.
You did.
And one of his lines, as cars are driving by, like he's saying, like, read more comics, like he'd yell at a car with the windows down, "What are you going to do, go home and watch HBO? Go read some comics." And at one point I go, "You know, Peacemaker's on HBO, right?" He's like, "What are you going to do, go home and watch NBC?"
There you go.
But yeah, the protest was his idea, and he got some good coverage for it.
Yeah.
There was a photographer from New York taking a bunch of photos. She took one of you standing in front of it, and that's the only one she's posted to her socials.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that. I hope it looked okay. I never know.
You never care.
I would not want it to look bad. Is
Okay.
basically the part I care about.
So her name was Jane. I can't remember her last name. And Robert asked something about Jane, and I said, "What? No, I thought you brought her." He's like, "No, I thought she was your photographer." "No, she was just someone who's on vacation from New York and saw the thing happening." He's like, "Oh, I want to go take photos of that."
I think she was there with her family.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah,
there was a kid who really wanted to go.
Yeah. So she's like, "I'm taking photos."
Yeah.
But Robert's protest, he had sign making equipment. He made a bunch of signs. The cosplayers were posting signs. We had, like I said, we had Black Canary. Parker was there as the bombastic bagman in a pretty great suit, with complete with
It was good.
the bag on his head and the kick me sign on his back.
It's all these things where it adds up, where it's like, I don't know what else we reasonably could have done, considering the physical constraints of our space.
Yeah.
The larger things that we can't possibly control, like, the CTA was parking
Oh,
show
yeah, the
buses in
buses
front of
were
the
in
store
front.
all day.
I'm going to do a quick little segue about the CTA and the buses. So there have been on weekends, and for the last couple weeks, last like 2 months,
Yep.
and through the end of this month, because the Blue Line is under construction from Western through Addison on weekends, there's shuttle buses that take you from Western to Addison, the stops in between, in place of the train.
Right.
because of that, and because of how full trains normally are, the city has a line of shuttle buses, just normal city buses that are
Only for the use of the CTA customers.
shuttling you to the CTA, the Blue Line locations. So they need to block off all of the spots in front of us and Delgado's and down the block a bit.
Yeah.
Because there's a
Black River. Yeah.
constant run of buses. So that means no parking in front of the store. That also means loud, smelly buses with full of exhaust that are parked in front of the store, so you don't want to open doors on weekends. And it means nobody can park in the street.
Yep.
For Free Comic Book Day, it means cars can't see you either,
Right.
which is a huge drawback.
I mean, I don't know if it's a huge problem, mostly because for Free Comic Book Day, most people who are going to it have already decided to go to it.
We do get, because this is the part I hear, people who see things happening and they decide to stop and come in.
Sure. I mean, I think that might be the case for people walking around, maybe. But
Also,
I don't know if like people who are driving are like
I'm literally just telling you that that's what happens.
people like who are driving. Pull
Well,
over?
they can't pull over. There's buses there, but they will find somewhere to park and
Okay.
come in.
I had no idea. I mean,
Also, our cosplayers and George are yelling to everyone in cars, like, hey, it's Free Comic Day. Stop what you're doing and come on in.
wow. Okay.
That is the thing they do regularly. And there's plenty of people that they pull in who have no idea what is going on, but they come in and get their free books
Okay.
and then leave.
Oh, news to me.
So none of that could happen. But my story is from a few weeks ago, where at the start of this, they had signs up that said, oh, you can't park here from, here till the end of May. Then they switched it to they were doing different, like new signs every week, just to be like, oh, these, like from Friday through Sunday, you
Right.
can't park. Well, there was a Saturday where I noticed that there were no signs whatsoever. So cars were parking, and then they were getting ticketed. Now, traditionally, the CTA people would, if someone is parked out front, they'd come in and say, is this someone's car? You got to move. You're going to get ticketed or towed. But this time, they weren't doing that. They were just ticketing. In fact, one CTA guy one week poked his head and said, you got to tell your people they can't park here. I said, I don't got to do nothing. It's not my job.
It's true.
I'm not doing that. So I watched a CTA person ticket a car. I'm like, all right, let's see. So I go out there. I'm like, excuse me. First of all, this is not my car. I'm not here to argue with you. Just asking you, why did this car get a ticket? And he said, oh, you can't park here. It's the bus zone. I go, how do people know that? Well, there's signs. There are no signs. Look at there's no signs. And he said, there were signs. Someone tore them all down. And I said, no, there weren't. I've been here every day this week. There have been no signs. You see that one pole down there? It has a sign that says last week. No one ever put up signs for this week. And he said, well, it doesn't matter because everyone in this community knows what's happening, so they know you can't park here. And I said, what about all the people that are coming from outside of this community to come get a haircut, buy some comics, get their car worked on? And at that point, he just started giving me his name and his rank as if he was a military prisoner. And I said, hey man, I'm not reporting you. I want to know what's happening and why, and I don't think this is fair to the people getting tickets.
Nope.
But at the same time, somebody was cooking something with garlic. So I'm like, also, do you smell that? That smells delicious. I just wanted to diffuse it a little bit because he was getting a little heated. So basically, there was no good reason. He's like, oh no, you can't park here. I'm like, no one put signs up. Someone didn't do their job, and no one put signs up. So I don't think it was fair. And anybody, and the car that was being ticketed, not a Challengers person. Because I went in and asked.
Right.
Because all they'd have to do is take photos of the lampposts, and they could fight that ticket.
Sure, that's true.
But it's just such a Chicago thing.
Yeah.
Hey, why can't you do this? Well, you can't do it. But why? Well, you should just know.
Yeah.
You can't just know. That's not fair. But yeah, so I forgot where we were going with the Free Comic Day stuff, but I mean, it was a successful event. It just wasn't what we wanted.
Yeah, it was successful. It wasn't lucrative.
Yeah, there you go. And because this is a comics business industry podcast, I got those words reversed.
You did.
A comics industry business podcast, we're telling you what happened.
Yeah.
And why we think it happened, I don't know. How can we fix it? Don't know. We'll
No
work on that
idea.
for next year. We have plans for next year. We've got plans for hours. We've got plans for a theme, which we don't usually have a theme.
That's true.
But there's a built-in theme. So,
Hopefully that'll be fun for people.
but we also always have these talks immediately after Free Comic Book Day. and then just say, meh, and then let it.
Yeah, it's
Let
a
it
long
wait.
time to think about it.
Yeah. So let's move on from free comics to free rings
Oh, yes.
and the lack of free rings.
Yep.
This week, Green Lantern #1 came out from DC Comics. And in the past, whether it be Green Lantern Mosaic or a different Green Lantern #1, DC used to offer a variety of Lantern rings, Lantern Core rings. It started with green, then it went to every Lantern Core color. And if you order X number of books, you'd either get a bag of 50 rings or whatever, or you could buy a bag of 50 rings, or whatever the promotion was. They would make plastic lantern rings for stores. After they announced Green Lantern #1, they're like, and there'll be rings again. Which I initially thought it meant new rings. It did not. It was leftover rings. Fine. Still, it's been, how long has it been since we had rings?
I mean, the last time I remember us really getting them was around like Blackest Night, which was like 15 years ago.
Yeah. So it's been a long time since we had rings. They did Legion Flight rings, they did Flash rings, but anyway. So we ordered, and we weren't going to order this many Green Lantern #1s, but like, oh, we'll bump it to get the rings. So we upped the quantity to be able to get the bag of Green Lantern rings, and then the DC books show up. There's no rings. Like, oh, okay. Maybe they're coming separately because maybe they weren't packed with the books, right? Maybe it's the next day. The next day, and we did email to say, hey, FYI, we got no rings. The next day, we got a reply, and then they put out a press release saying that there aren't enough Green Lantern rings. However, there are other Lantern Core rings. So if you were supposed to get like 50 Green Lantern rings, we'll give you 100 Orange Lantern rings.
Yeah, you could pick your color.
So that led to speculation, and I can't confirm this, but somebody had said that what they assumed or found out happened was DC came across all these boxes of extra rings and then sent them to Lunar to give out. Lunar got all these boxes of rings and just assumed every box was green and that there'd be no problem with quantity. But in fact, it was all the different Lantern color rings. I don't know if that's what happened. All I know is they gave rings to some stores, and then the other ones said, you can't have green, you can have other colors.
Yep.
To which we said, no thanks.
Yeah.
We don't want 2 bags of yellow rings.
No.
But it's disappointing, and it's disappointing that it happened, and it's disappointing that, because I've seen stores post about the rings they have,
I'm sure.
and it's disappointing. Like, I don't know what the allocation was. I'm sure they gave it to stores that ordered way more. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Probably.
I'm sure it would be dumb to be like, oh, every store gets 10. But that'd also be a huge hassle.
Yeah, they were not going to be splitting up bags
Yeah.
to give people fractions. You got a full bag or you got nothing.
We're just very happy we didn't do any promotion for it.
Yeah, very much so.
As the only thing I had done was I listed Green Lantern rings in the merchandise section of the breakdown, but I was able to erase that before.
That's good.
Yeah. So no Green Lantern rings.
Nope.
It would have been fun.
Yeah.
Luckily, I still had one from years past I got to wear for the videos this week.
Yeah, that came out pretty well.
Yeah, Dal filmed me in a dark space trying to illuminate just the light itself.
Yeah.
I bought a like $3 green domino mask
Yeah.
online, and hilariously it was so flat that when the envelope came, you're like, what did he even get?
Yeah, it felt like an empty envelope.
Yeah. All right. So you've read some previews.
I did. Not as many as I wanted to, but I did read some DC previews. The only one I kind of would feel like is worth talking about is the Flash 800,
Okay.
which is an anniversary issue. It's pretty cool because it's got a bunch of previous creative teams doing new stories featuring like their most famous characters. So Jeff Johnson, Scott Collins do a Reverse Flash story. Outgoing writer Jeremy Adams does like a whole like Wally West story, but through a really cool...
A 2-minute war story?
No. Through a very cool setup for it. Mark Waid does a Impulse story with Young Justice artist Todd Nauck.
Is it Bart as a kid?
Yeah, I don't...
Not like when he was the Flash.
No, it's classic Bart Allen.
Remember that series where Bart was the Flash?
Fastest Man Alive, yeah.
Yeah.
Terrible artwork. But yeah, it's a very cool look back at the Flash character through a lot of the more prominent modern creative teams, but it's also got, and I didn't get to read this because it wasn't in the preview, the first look at the new creative team, Cy Spurrier and Mike Deodato Jr., who'll be launching a new Flash series in September after Night Terrors is over. And the couple pages they showed looked very weird for Mike Deodato.
Mike Deodato's not a guy you think of when you think of fast kinetic energy.
He's not, and these pages were not necessarily fast or kinetic, but he's definitely approaching it in a very distinct for him way of doing it. So I'm curious to see what the story's going to read like and how the writing's going to work with it and what more than 2 pages looks like. But that was a solid anniversary special. It's very different than the Batman 900 that just came out that was one full-length conclusion to a story that if you've not been reading Batman for the last year, probably did not make a lot of sense. Flash 800 is one that if you had skipped out on literally the last 10 years worth of Flash comics, you could still pick this up and enjoy it.
I honestly was going to give it a miss, but you've talked me into it.
Yeah, I mean, I on the other hand, I don't want to make it sound like, this is, the apex of Flash storytelling for the last 100 years, but it's a good snapshot of some of the more well-regarded creative teams doing little short stories in the style that you would want them to do.
Was there a Carrie Bates, Carmen Infantino section?
What I was given from DC was listed as not a complete preview, so
okay.
Still time.
I read, and as I'm saying the words I read, I realize I can't remember the title. The new John Layman book from Image.
Like In Hell We...
In Hell We Fight.
Okay.
In Hell We Fight, and they've given us the first 4 issues. I've read 3 so far. It's John Layman and Jock, but not Jock Jock. It's Jok Jock.
Yeah.
It's a whole different artist.
Different.
And
Jock.
the art is a mashup of Gabriel Ba, Fabio Moon, and Chris Mitten, is how I would describe it.
Which is a very strange art style to try and visualize.
Like if they merged into one style.
Crazy.
And even though it's about people who died and have gone to hell, it's a lighthearted kind of caper book, and it's actually pretty fun, and I'm really enjoying it so far.
Nice.
And he even said that he wrote, like, during the pandemic, he wanted to write something that was fun, and you wouldn't think of people stuck in hell as fun, but I don't want to say too much about it because there's a reveal at the end of the first issue which gives you basically what the book is going to be about. That's kind of telegraphed.
Okay.
But the premise of the first issue is our 3 main characters who basically the way you die gives you an ability in hell. And hell is full of, demons and archdemons and all sorts of the things you would expect, but it's also a very wide open Earth-like landscape.
Sure.
And the premise of the first issue is basically, as we're getting introduced to these 3 characters, they want ice cream.
Okay.
So they're going to knock over a hell ice cream truck.
Okay.
And that's the setup for it. And yeah, I'm enjoying it. And
Nice.
It was, John Layman, famous for Chew. Mm-hmm. And he's done so many other books. I remember when he was a letterer in the industry, and he was first tapped to write Thundercats. Oh, wow. For Wildstorm. Sure. And I remember doing one of the Bob Chin's Crab Shack DC dinners with, it always used to be Fletcher Chufang from DC and Stuart Morales from Wizard and me, and then other people that we brought along. And occasionally there were creators. Right. And one time it was John Layman, and that was when he was first announced as writing Thundercats. I'm like, the letterer? The letterer gets to write Thundercats?
Everyone starts somewhere.
Weird. But he's done a lot of books over the years. He did that Kaiju book recently, an Image Kaiju book. I can't remember what it was called. I can't remember a lot of things. I couldn't even remember In Hell We Fight. Sure. But, yeah, I think that In Hell We Fight is a book that will probably be under a lot of people's radar. Okay. And it's definitely worth picking up and flipping through. Nice. I got to read issue 3 of The Nasty. I think was 2 out this week?
I think so.
Yeah. The art's getting a little bit rushed, but it's still a fun story about a video store, a horror-themed video store in Scotland, trying to make their own horror movie for a convention that's coming to town to save their store. But now we're getting a little bit more darker undertones, and things are getting a little more explained. Sure. But it's a real fun premise from John Lees, and this week was supposed to be here's all the PDFs I have stacked up and I'm barely scratching the surface.
Mm-hmm.
So there's plenty more to go, but that's as far as I got. You tell me that there's a Peacemaker Tries Hard number 2.
2 and 3, I think, are both
wow.
up on
All right.
Diamond's site.
Very excited for that.
DC's box site.
Yeah.
I also read Parasocial, which was really, really good.
Oh, right, yeah. The new Eric Henderson book written by Alex DeCampo.
Yeah, Image had sent out a PDF of it, and it was the same week as Free Comic Book Day, so it's just like, I have no time to read this. But Kyle Starks is friends with Eric Henderson. They worked together on Assassination. And he had read it and thought it was really good, and thought it was better than Dracula Motherfucker. And I love that book, so I'm like, wow, I guess I'll give it a read. So I ended up reading all of it the Friday night before Free Comic Book Day, and I thought it was exceptional. I thought it was really, really, really good. It's a little more straightforward than Dracula was. Even some of the solicit text for Parasocial makes it sound like there's like a supernatural aspect. There's not. It's basically misery for the Comic-Con set, and it gets at things that are a bit more modern in the ways that we approach like art as a fan than were really possible when Stephen King was doing Misery.
Like how the perceived closeness with social media.
Yeah, I mean, it's right there in the title, like Parasocial. Like, I think some of the solicit text and the title Parasocial made people think like, oh, paranormal. Like, no. It's literally just how the interaction between basically like actor and fan is now caught up in social media and the need to, like, for an actor to market themselves directly to fans and interact with fans more directly, and how people's connection to art is now less the story and more the things we project onto the people who told that story. And it's a real good story about these kind of two characters, an actor and a fan, and just where it goes is really fascinating. The art's gorgeous, and Erica Henderson has a piece in the back where she talks about how much the coloring is meant to reflect different stages of the story and how thoughtful that part of the creation of the book was. Alex DeCampo did a soundtrack for the entire book that you can get on Spotify. There's a QR code in the back. Yeah, I thought it was phenomenal, and I should not have stayed up late reading it the night before Free Comic Book Day, but I could not stop myself. Still available for pre-order, I think, maybe. I don't think we've closed orders on that yet. But it was already one of my most anticipated graphic novels of the year, and it absolutely lived up to the hype.
It's just weird that after you read it, you then stayed up even later writing fan letters to all of your favorite comic creators.
I did, yeah. I told them all horrible things on social media and threatened their lives.
Well, everyone knows that part's not true.
No, it's true.
The social media part.
No, I didn't do that.
The threatening their life part? I don't know, maybe.
Maybe.
I wouldn't expect you to, but, I mean, you do you, man.
It's true.
That's fine.
Everyone makes their own choices.
That's right. This week in the store is a couple of new #1 team books, which are highly anticipated, including Titans #1 from Tom Taylor and Nicola Scott.
That's right. Yeah, we've been talking about it for months.
And Avengers #1 by Jed MacKay and C.F. Villa with the new lineup.
Brand new lineup, brand new
threats,
direction.
and playing off of, what is that?
Timeless.
Timeless. What is it really special that they do every year? Don't change the name. Playing off of Timeless. And Batman the Brave and the Bold comes out, which we talked about in earnest a couple episodes ago, which was excellent.
Yeah. An anthology is always a tough thing in the superhero market because it, without a good couple linchpin stories, it's hard to justify doing it month after month with serialized stuff. But I think they've got 2, maybe 3 really good stories in there.
A week or two ago, Marvel had 6 or 7 #1s in the same week, which is commonplace.
Oh, yeah.
Like next week, they've got, I think, 4 or 5, but not this upcoming week, the week after that.
Right.
But this upcoming week, now the release date of the 17th, DC has 4 #1s, and that never happens.
Yeah.
Never happens. They've got Titans, they've got Cyborg #1, they've got Batman the Brave and the Bold #1.
It'll happen a lot more in July.
And they've got the Vigil #1. What else is in July?
Night Terrors month 1.
Oh,
so
right.
Every single week's going to have like 5 or 6 #1s.
Yeah. So speaking of Night Terrors, we've talked about this before, but we're going to go a little bit. I know there's some points you wanted to bring up about the new rewards program we have.
Oh, yeah.
But leading into that, I wanted to mention that this is the thing that we do, but we are as transparent as possible for it. When the new catalog comes out, and there is a new book that has a direct correlation to a book you're already subscribed to, be it the same creative team, be it the same storyline, we will copy titles over. We will copy people's subscriptions over to the new title. We rarely do that. We talk about how we don't like doing it most of the time, how it's a common practice with stores to do it, and stores are constantly like, oh, you like this, I added it for you, or, hey, it's a new Hulk #1, we're going to add it for you, whatever.
We tossed this in your box. Don't do that.
Yeah. So specifically with Knight Terrors, Knight Terrors, there are like a third of the books coming out that are by the same creative team, or at least the same writer, as the ongoing series. Like Catwoman, like Action Comics, like Shazam, like Superman. So in those instances, and because the regular titles are stopping for 2 months, we add people to those books. It's not giving you anything other than you were already getting.
Right. So we weren't going to do it for a book like Batman that is by Josh Williamson, the writer of Knight Terrors, because you were already subscribed to Batman by Chip Zdarsky, which doesn't exist for 2 months.
Right. And we don't just do this. Every month, at the end of the month, when the new catalogs are ready, the new Managed Comics listings are available, you'll get an email from us that says, basically, hey, the new Managed Comic listings are up. And right at the front of the email is, here are the copied over subscriptions for the month. If you were getting Superman, you're now getting Knight Terrors Superman.
Right.
And it's a list, and it's a small list. Usually, Knight Terrors made it a little bit bigger.
Right.
But it's usually a handful of books.
Yeah.
And even before it lists the books, it says, if you are down for anything you don't want, you've got a couple of weeks, let us know and we'll pull you off of this. This is never a money-making thing for us. It's so you don't miss out, and a month later we have to scramble to try to find you a sold-out #1, a thing that we can't get anymore. And we're only ever doing it for books that you have already said that you wanted. You just may not know that it exists.
Right.
Occasionally, people will be like, why am I down for this book? I never asked for this book. It's like, well, we emailed you about it specifically. And we're glad that you see it and you caught it and you don't want it and you're letting us know. That's what we want you to do. But why we did it, we tell you every time we do it.
Right.
So it's never malicious. It's never us signing you up for things and not telling you. We do tell you, you may just miss it.
Correct.
Over to Dal with the rewards program.
So one of the things that in the first week or so that we've been doing the rewards program, I guess it's been 11 days now, we want to make sure that you get the most value out of it. And the thing that I kind of want to impress upon anyone who's a subscriber is that the rewards program is not a replacement for the pre-order discount. It is an expansion of the pre-order discount. If you're using the rewards program as a way to supplement or to replace the discount that we were previously getting as a pre-order thing, you are underutilizing it. Points are earned off of everything you buy, not just your pre-order books. So every package of bag and boards that you order, every purchase you make on the website, all of that earns you points. And in return, points can be redeemed for any purchase. If you're only using your rewards when you're getting your weekly books, you are, again, underutilizing it. You could use it on a completely different purchase. You could use it on bags and boards. You could use it on something on our website to pick up later. All of these things are available to you because of the way the points work, that they aren't tied to your pre-orders. We have a pre-order program. We have a subscription service that is separate from the rewards program. They're not tied together anymore. So if you're thinking about it that way, you're not getting the most value you possibly could out of the rewards program. So that's something that I think I maybe want to make clear to people, even though the most of the way we were talking about it originally was trying to make it clear to people who were getting the pre-order discount through the subscription service that we were transitioning to the rewards program. But the rewards program is for everything in the store and the website and for every purchase you make. The end.
What a deal.
Yeah, hopefully it's a good one.
I will say that so far it seems like 99% of the people in our subscription service like the rewards program.
Yeah, I hope it's... We had talked about this previously when we were first discussing it on the podcast. We didn't want to do something that was just reducing what you were getting, even though it was, more cost-effective for us. We wanted to make it something where it was more cost-effective for us, but also still beneficial for you.
Yeah. Well, Dal, the very start of this podcast was us talking in the car with Kyle, and one of the main points was our phone call to All-Star.
Yes.
Which I wasn't really sure if I was going to keep that in, because it's a funny story, but I didn't want it to be us being mean or picking on them.
Sure.
But I don't need to worry about that, because Mitchell immediately posted about it
Oh.
on Facebook, and that made me feel like, oh yeah, that's fair game. We can talk about it.
Yeah, for sure.
And I was able to take his post, cut it into 2 pieces, and use that as an Instagram story as well.
Awesome.
But he tells it in a very funny way, where he's very self-deprecating, and how while I was laughing about it on the phone, he was curled up in a fetal position behind the counter, in fear of what he had done.
I'm sure. He's
So-
a very polite gentleman.
He is, and it was. And honest to God, I think that the way it worked out is better for us entertainment-wise than if
Oh,
we
yeah.
just answered and we had a conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
But this is a conversation that we had, and it's over now. Thanks for listening.
Keep reading comics.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. And help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.